Having emotionally immature parents sucks, to put it lightly. This is a topic that I'm seeing people discuss a lot more openly on social media, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation here today on this video. It's also a topic that I have personal experience with because I also have had challenges in my relationship with my emotionally immature parents. And so I'm seeing a lot of content creators actually centering their work around the idea of healing from mother wounds, healing from childhood trauma, or something that is called complex PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's very complicated. It's like weaved in with a lot of suppressed memories, suppressed experiences. Maybe there's some trauma bonding that's happening there. If you are someone who's been diagnosed with CPTSD, then you are familiar with what I'm talking about. And I guess right now is a really good time to also clarify that I am not a psychologist nor a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. None of that. I'm just here to talk about what I have been observing, as well as some things that have helped me to move through dealing with having emotionally immature parents, as I also have become a parent and have raised my own family. So I would say that the part that in my opinion, hurts the most is all of the mourning that the adult children have to do over the relationship that they thought they were going to have with their parents once they grew up. So for some of us, we were maybe subjugated and put into a small box as we were growing up because our parents had lots of expectations of us. They wanted us to perform to a high level in school. Maybe your parents also pushed you to get involved in sports, cheerleading, band, or music in some way, some sort of extracurriculars on top of putting you into honors classes, AP classes, IB classes, all of this expectation that you will perform to a high level, that you will make the family proud, and that you will somehow bring like some sort of credit or gold stars to their name. Because a lot of the children of emotionally immature parents, they will report that most of the time their accomplishments are really just about however it makes their mom or dad look. So the university that they went to, they likely only went there because that's what their mom or dad told them that they should do. Maybe they went to that university, so they were a legacy there, and then their parent encouraged them to also attend the same university, regardless of if that university offered the program that you would need for the career you wanted, regardless of where that university was located, regardless of if you felt like you were ready to move away when you were 18 years old. And so this mourning can also look like a lack of support, whether that be emotional support just through life. In the last 10 years, we've had a lot of things happen in the United States that I would imagine most people needed emotional support through. I know I did. I mean, we had a drastic regime change in 2016, followed by a pandemic in 2020 that no one's really talking about, but the disease that caused that pandemic, it's still running rampant. And then there's been this like weird return to normalcy since the pandemic, since all of the lockdowns stopped and everybody supposedly got vaccinated. But the world has felt very strange coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Holidays, birthdays, all of those special occasions that occur throughout the year that we see on the calendar, but we sort of forget about until we see them written on the calendar. Those are things that you would like to have familial support for, but sometimes it's hard to include your parents in that when they are emotionally immature. And in the case of women especially, being able to talk with your mom through the aging and the changes that often happen with our bodies after we reach age 40. You miss out on that when you have emotionally immature parents. And then of course there is the protection aspect of things, which sort of answers the question as to why most people walk away, why most people choose estrangement, the ones who do. Because what emotionally immature parents often tend to do is undermine all of the effort, all of the work, all of the strategy, meticulousness, every single piece that you have put into something that's important to you, oftentimes your emotionally immature parent will undermine that effort. So if you have made strides with your mental fitness, then chances are your emotionally immature parent is laughing that off because they think, well, that's stupid. You had to go to a shrink to tell you what to do with your brain. That's so ridiculous. Part of this is a mentality that was cultivated during the 60s, 70s, even part of the 80s and 90s. People believe that if you reach out to a mental health professional, that somehow makes you crazy. Any advancements you've had in your career, these tend to show up as either bragging rights for the emotionally immature parent or, well, that's not that big of a deal. They're minimizing your accomplishments, basically. Your parenting, for those of you who have chosen to become parents. Now, I am a mother of two who is so happy to support any and everybody who chooses to be child-free. This is not a job for someone who doesn't actually want to do it, and we don't need people out here welcoming babies when they don't actually want to be parents. That's a worst case scenario. But for those of us who have welcomed children and we've decided that some of the stuff that was used on us when we were growing up, some of the tactics, some of the rules, some of the approaches, we don't really want anything to do with that. We want to have our own approach, something that is fresh, something that is newer. Once we know better, we try to do better. Emotionally immature parents don't want to hear any of that. They don't want to see that. They will be personally offended at the fact that you have made choices that seem to negate whatever their parenting style was, because how dare you? Or your emotionally immature parent will say, well, that was in the past. It was long ago. I took care of you. I fed you. I this, that, the third. Why are we still talking about this? And I just want to pause here and say that if you're somebody who has tried to approach this conversation with your parents and you got nowhere, or they threw all this stuff back at you, making you seem as though you were ungrateful for all of the sacrifice that they had done for you and how hard they had worked for you. First and foremost, you're not crazy. It's absolutely okay to want to bring those things up. A lot of us who have welcomed our own kids and now have a chance to sit in the parenting seat, that is what's opening up a lot of this curiosity for us about how we were treated before. But I've even seen people who don't have any kids just grow up, mature, get older. Maybe they've observed some other families and then suddenly they have questions about why were these choices made with how I was raised and how my childhood was treated.
The funniest thing that an emotionally immature parent will do is they will blame the kid for things as if they were not the one that raised the kid. As if they had literally nothing to do with any of the qualities that have been instilled in this child or any of their issues.
Because it's like, something that messes us up with that is because we're so obedient Black girls, we have to take on her fear because she gave it to us. She said, here, hold this. This is the most valuable thing I'm going to give you because this is what will keep you safe. Even if we know it's irrational and it don't make no sense. As a part of being a good daughter, we continue with it. Because it's like, in a way, if she's afraid, I should be afraid. That's how we honor our mother. Whatever she thought, I'm going to think the same thing. Because to disagree with her, to have another thought process, is seen as disrespectful. To live a life different from hers is seen as disrespectful. So that means to be brave, to be courageous, to take risks is the equivalent of being disobedient, being a bad daughter, and more than success, more than having the life of your dreams. I'ma tell you what we want more than all of that. We want a mother who loves us, who tells us that we're good, because we need to hear it from her, because we've been believing we're bad all this time. So we take on her fear and we carry it like a shield. But behind the scenes, it's crippling, it's stressful, and it's exhausting because it doesn't belong to you.
Many emotionally immature parents will also tie some of these parenting tactics and family planning and raising to religion. And that just becomes a really tangled and ugly mess, because suddenly now, not only is the criticism that they aim at you of your parenting, but it's also like teetering into this like moral stance and character stance of like, oh, this is the kind of person you are. And lastly, Emotionally immature parents can also undermine any of the adult relationships you have in your life. So this includes not only your friends, your coworkers, your boss, but also your romantic partners or your spouse. It can also include siblings. So in some scenarios, there are siblings who will become triangulated against each other because of the dealings of the emotionally immature parent or parents who are at play. And I think I just wanted to clear some space to make room for us to talk about how exhausting it can be. It is exhausting when you are trying to parent people who are older than you because they always know what's best. They always know much better than you do about anything, regardless of how much experience you might have with it, regardless of what your life has looked like. They will always feel that they know best because deep down, for a lot of emotionally immature parents, the only thing that really grants them their authority is their big age. The fact that their age is a bigger number than yours makes them somehow an authoritative figure over you. But if you're somebody who has lived in the world of critical thinking, even for just a day, you know why that is a flawed mentality to take. This is actually one area that I have chosen to be different from how I was raised and the people who raised me, because I was never allowed to question or criticize or disagree with anything when I was growing up. It just had to be 100% everybody's on the same page, even if that page is on fire and out of the book. But in my household now, I allow my children to ask questions. I allow them to tell me, hey, mom, I think you were wrong about this. And I listen without making a face or acting dismissive, because I want my children to know that their perspective is valuable, because that will be useful for them when they get into their careers later and they have to advocate for themselves. I am not at this stage personally, but I've also seen my friends who have emotionally immature parents get into these sort of like standoff fights with their parents over their own care. So let's say that the parent is no longer able to live independently, or maybe they can live independently, but they need somebody to come and check in on them and maybe cook them a meal and make sure that everything is clean and that they are clean and, everything is sanitary in the home. Some emotionally immature parents will fight on that, like fight to the death on that and get really ugly about it. And it's not lost on me that autonomy and independence and dignity is still very important for us right up until the time when we pass on. But I would imagine it's very challenging when you know that medically your parent is of need that is greater than what you can provide for them, greater than what they can have access to in their home, and they still want to fight you vehemently on it. I can't even imagine how exhausting that is. And last but not least, emotionally immature parents are also a really terrible example of how to age. There are some couples who boast about having been married for 40, 50 years, and that's great. Kudos to them. But keep in mind that the quality of a marriage, just like what I was saying about authority and age and how the number of someone's age does not equate to how much authority they have or how knowledgeable they are on a topic, it's the same thing with relationship longevity. The number of years that two people have been together, that's really no indication of how healthy that relationship is, because I've met some couples who have been together for 50, 60 years, and the way that they talk to each other, oh, my husband and I could never. The way that they go about addressing issues in their marriage, ooh, it is very cringe-inducing. All of the immature and just emotionally low vibrational tactics that some of these people will reach for because they have never seen any better. They weren't shown any better. I would like to believe that we have had emotionally well-adjusted and mentally well-regulated people exist in all timelines. So back in the 1800s, you had your empathic people who were well-adjusted, who could kind of understand where other people were coming from and served as good mediators for conflict resolution. Even in the 1400s, I know that was happening. But that still doesn't equate or compare to the amount of mental health resources we have available that are just free and out there these days. Anybody who wants to take a deep dive on self-care, on how to heal from trauma, on learning how to heal from people-pleasing, any sort of topics like that, you can find licensed clinical psychologists here on YouTube, as well as TikTok and other places, and you can watch their content and get some insights into how to sort of deal with identifying and also treating some of these issues that you might be dealing with. Now, any sort of treatment plan that you are going to undergo needs to be prescribed by a professional. So watching YouTube videos by a licensed clinical psychologist is not going to equate to actually sitting in a licensed clinical psychologist's office and being diagnosed after going through a session of therapy with them. But I say all this to say that for a lot of us, our parents really don't know how to do better. And for some of those who don't know how to do better, some of them just don't want to do better. They're not interested in it. They turn the blinders on as soon as they see that you're trying to talk to them about something that's new, that is outside of their scope of understanding. For those who are actually willing and want to change, want to grow, want to learn, that's great. I say that that's all that we can ask of humans, is that they be willing to grow, be willing to change once they recognize or once they are informed that there's a better way to do this and your approach is outdated, obsolete, and therefore not going to be constructive. For the others, I would say don't hold your breath, don't waste your time waiting, because the unfortunate part about having emotionally immature parents is that even though they will continue to lord over you that time is running out and I'm not going to be alive forever, and what happens after I die? Aren't you going to miss me? And what about all these things that we've never actually reminisced on, and blah, 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 whatever the end stage looks like for them. In those cases, I would say, however is most comfortable and most constructive for you to leave an avenue open for their possibility of change, but keeping boundaries in place so that your peace does not have to be interrupted every time they fail at that change, or every time they inform you that, no, I'm not going to change. Protect your peace. I think that protecting your peace is one of the most important aspects of dealing with immature parents, emotionally immature parents. And I just want to mention the words of some licensed psychologists, therapists. So I found this article titled "The 3 Reasons Adult Children Say They Pull Away," and I'll link this in the description as well. But this is by Dr. Jeffrey Bernstein. And he basically sums this up by saying that, number 1, adult children of emotionally immature parents prioritize emotional safety over the obligation to connect. So it's more important to me that my mental health stay intact than it is for me to see you all the time. Number 2 is they pursue autonomy and a sense of identity. So in a lot of these cases, the parents sort of raised us up to be little miniature versions of them, which works out great, assuming that you want to do all of those things and you want to be a spitting image of your mother or your father or both in some way. If that's the case, then I think that that's great and more power to you. But for a lot of us, we'd like to build our own identities and create our own little sort of space and purpose in this life. And emotionally immature parents don't always want to accept that. Sometimes the only way to achieve that is to pull away. And the third reason that he quotes is unmet emotional needs. And so this is not being able to hold space for the things that you might grieve. Maybe you had a career setback in your life, and it was something that took you a little while to get over. Emotionally immature parents are going to ridicule you for that. Maybe you and your spouse are going through issues. The emotionally immature parent is probably going to have a bunch of advice and finger wagging and, oh, I knew, and this, that, and the third, rather than just holding space for whatever ugliness might come out as your relationship sort of falls apart. And last but certainly not least, I just want to mention a book that was very eye-opening to me. It sort of started my journey on figuring out why it was that I had such a hard time connecting with my parents and why I couldn't get them to respect my space, respect my autonomy. It's a book titled Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents: How to Heal from... Oh gosh, there's a subtitle here and it's cut off, but the author is Lindsay Gibson. That's who authored that book. And I actually listened to that book for free on Libby. It was very insightful. I took notes as I was listening, and it was a really great starting point for me on my journey. So if you're someone who suspects that you might have emotionally immature parents, maybe check out this book, and you can do that for free through Libby. This concludes the first video in my sort of like, I don't know what I'm gonna call this yet. I might call it deep cuts. I might call it up close and personal. I'm not sure. But I want to also put out videos on this channel that speak to more of the personal aspects, because right now, as we sort of deal with everything coming down the pipeline from the Trump regime in the United States to all of the developments happening in the Middle East with Israel and Gaza and Palestine, to the Ukraine war, Russia, things that are happening in Asia, all over the world, there is madness right now. And I get that we like to laugh, we like to gossip, we like to poke fun at people from time to time. But then there's also the real serious aspects of what adulthood looks like for millennials, because it looks very different than how it did for our parents. I feel like we are largely on our own because most of the systems that we were looking towards are crumbling in real time. We got to figure something else out. So that's why I made this video. It's the first in what will be many, but I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have topics that you want to suggest for this series, leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch up with you next time. Bye! Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more from me, consider hitting that subscribe button so you can see all my playlists and get notified every time I upload to this channel. If you want to keep up with behind the scenes lifestyle stuff, you can follow me on Threads. Take care!